This man's name is One. He is one of the richest billionaires on earth, definitely not Elon Musk. He basically made his money from living his childhood dream, which is inventing neodymium magnets, a piece of scientific work the world has never seen before. Okay, One doesn't love injustice. He wanted to be like the Batman in Justice League. He loves to help people as he feels that action speaks louder than words. Talking without actually taking actions isn't just worth it. So with the privilege of being a billionaire, One decides to fake his own death and form an anonymous group which was just like the Avengers but without superpowers. This group would help in taking down tyrants and bad people from different countries, people that the world couldn't touch. Let's dive straight into the story. Do not touch the exit button till you watch to the end. Sit back, relax and enjoy the video. Popularly known as Ryan Reynolds, and anonymously known as One in this American vigilante action thriller called Six Underground. He recruits a team of 5 people including him. He gives them a numbered nickname. Just like him, these people have no past and are considered dead. So that means they faked their own death and decided to work as ghosts. After they had gone to interrogate the lawyer of a tyrant in Florence, Italy. They are being pursued by gunmen with heavy gun power. 2, who is a spy, had being shot through a window while she was trying to escape, and 5, who is actually a doctor, can be seen trying to operate on 2's gun wound, while the crew were in a hot car chase. Meanwhile, 6 is a very skillful driver. He evades the gunman, leading to a lot of car accidents. While they are being pursued by a motorcyclist, 2 decides to step up for the crew by firing at the rider while she was still injured. As the chase becomes so intense, 1 requested that 4 help out. 4, another member of the vigilante crew, is a Skywalker who is basically good at running past buildings. He helped in taking out some gunmen in the most tragic way. 1, who had scooped out the eyes of the lawyer, then uses his eyeballs to unlock the transmission between their number 1 target, Rovich, and his 4 generals. Number 3, who is a hitman, then helped out 4 in taking down the remaining gunmen, but in the process 6, the fast and furious driver, got killed in the most brutal way. This made the team devastated. They wrapped up his body. In an emotional moment they tossed him into the ocean. Nobody knew nothing about 6, as close relationships with each members was forbidden. It was worse till the extent that they didn't even know each other's name. 1 wanted it that way. He was like the professor of 6 skillful vigilantes, just that this time around they weren't robbing banks but fighting for the cause of the people, and their nicknames were based on numbers. 1 then tells the group that they had to find a number 7 to replace 6, the Gray Man. The movie then switches to Falcon Soldier on a mission in Afghanistan. Blaine is actually a sniper man from the Delta Force. On a screwed up mission in Afghanistan, Blaine saw his whole team die. He had the chance to save his teammates by taking a shot, but because of the orders from higher authorities, he didn't shoot. This event made Blaine live with guilt for the rest of his military life. While Blaine was thinking about his teammates and the effed up mission in Afghanistan, 1 came to him. He tells him that he would have ordered him to pull the trigger. He gives Blaine an opportunity to fight world-class evil leaders. He invites him to the crew as number 7. Blaine, who wanted to redeem himself, then accepts the offer. Blaine faked his death. A befitting burial with military paparazzi was conducted in honor of the soldier. Blaine was able to witness his own burial as his brother cried uncontrollably. 1 introduces 7 to the team. He briefs him on the vision of the crew, saying their objective is to take down world leaders who were bad. He reminds 7 that he is dead, so he is going to be restricted from visiting certain cities, and any association with his loved ones had to be cut off. 1 then tells the crew about their next mission and number 1 target, Rovich Alamov, a Kyrgyzstan dictator who treated his people as slaves. The team then discussed about the advantages of being dead but not actually dead, like not paying taxes, no criminal records and backstabbing girlfriends. 1 chipped in saying the most important aspect of being dead and yet still alive is the freedom. He then tells them about the coup he is planning to stage on Rovich, the Kyrgyzstan dictator, on the Day of the Dead. He tells them that they had to take out his 4 generals, which will mess up his day, because they are the most powerful people close to him. Then they have to free Rovich's democracy-loving brother who is held hostage. Then finally hit Rovich and bring back peace to the country. It wasn't going to be an easy mission. But with the help of 1's neodymium micromagnets invention they could probably pull through. Blaine then inquires to know more about Rovich's story, so the movie takes us back to when it all started in Kyrgyzstan. People were fleeing the country because of Rovich's military rule. Rovich is so cruel to his people he takes down anyone who tried to rebel against him. 1, who was still a philanthropist at that time, paid a visit to the Kyrgyzstan border, to carry out his good works on the injured and sick citizens. But he was just doing it for the papers and not actually from his heart. Just as he is trying to donate for the cause of the Kyrgyzstan people, Rovich launched an airstrike on the border, taking down so many people, young and old. As one watched so many defenseless people die that day, he decided to have a change of heart and actually put his good works into action. He decided to be a good Jeffrey Dahmer and form the anonymous vigilante group that will take down this tyrant leaders once and for all. It is believed that Rovich's philosophy is to use his power to communicate resolve and inspire fear to his enemies. One meets up with Rovich after a stage drama relating to tyrants. He tells him that no matter how a tyrant acts, justice was going to be served as demonstrated in the opera they had just seen. Rovich tells him that heroes always win in operas and drama, but it doesn't work that way in real life. One hooks up with a girl he met at the opera and suddenly developed an emotional connection with her. Had sex with her and then ghosted. The movie then switches to the present day. Number 4 reveals to 7 on how Murat, Rovich's brother, was imprisoned. He tells 7 that number 2 was actually working for Rovich before she was recruited. She had actually ambushed Murat while he was trying to escape. She captured him and then imprisoned him. So part of their mission is to rescue Murat from prison, although he isn't a saint, but he is still manageable. Back to the present day, the most feared dictator, Rovich then ordered his 4 generals to go over to Las Vegas, where they will meet up with Victor the arms dealer. He tells them to have fun and get drunk after they had completed the mission. One then informs the team that they will be going over to Las Vegas to take down the 4 generals. He tells them that they had to be careful because Las Vegas has more facial recognition software than anywhere in the world. So they needed to choose their disguises wisely. Be subtle and blend in. At Vegas, after the generals had concluded the arms business with Victor, they decided to have fun in a hotel, party with girls and get wasted. Well, they were actually wasted, but in a bad way. Number 2 and 3 had the worst disguise as they dressed as tennis players in one of the biggest events building in Vegas. They go over to the room the generals had lodged. They shot one of them who came to peek through the door after he heard a knock. They shot the remaining 2 in the most unexpected way ever. Then proceeded to the other room where the general who knew about the location of Murat was having sex with one of the girls. They held him at gunpoint and then demanded for the location of Murat. After he had revealed the location, he was shot in the head and died while he was still inside a woman. A pleasurable death. One then criticized their disguises, saying they dressed like clowns, overlooking his own Vegas biker costume. After the bloody event, 2 and 3 then stirred up an emotional connection as they had sex together. The next morning, 3 tells 2 that he had to go somewhere and needed to speak to somebody. He went over to a hospital to see his mom, who is suffering from loss of memory. He tells her about the mission and how he was going to take out bad guys, so he can erase his bad past and write a new one, but his mother wasn't pleased with him as she tagged him a murderer for what he did in the past. 3, originally known as Javi, once worked for a mafia guy named Diego. At one mission he killed a little girl's father and suddenly developed guilt towards his actions, which made him stop working for Diego. Later that night, as he was about leaving, one sneaked up on him like Bruce Wayne would do to offenders in Gotham. He puts a gun to his head and warns him that he isn't supposed to relate with anyone or have anything to do with them. He tells him that they had sacrificed everything for this mission, so he has to respect it. At Turkestan, a furious Rovich then addressed his men on the killing of his generals. Since he had to replace the generals, he called out 4 other people who were next in line. But then throws them off the building, saying it wouldn't be wise to trust those who stood the most to benefit from the death of the generals. So he appointed new people as generals. Meanwhile, as the team prepares to fly to Hong Kong so they can rescue Murat, 4 narrated to the crew on how he was recruited by 1 during a failed mission. It was revealed that 1 doesn't like the word family, so if you are ever stuck up on a mission, he won't come back for you. In the next scene, Rovich travels to visit his brother in Hong Kong. He asks him if he knows anything about the attack on his generals, but Murat claims not to know anything. Rovich then tells Murat that this attacks on his generals will only increase the intensity of his strikes. He tells Rovich that he would be going back to Turkestan and he had given to Kik, a muscular bodyguard, strict orders to harm Murat if anything happens to him. One briefs the team on the mission. It is going to be a penthouse extraction as they are going to rescue Murat from his prison. They were going to use the cranes as the sniper's nest for 7 and then a crossover to escape from the penthouse. On the day of the mission, 2 and 3 arrived in a Ferrari with masks on, while 4 used a zipline to cross over to the penthouse. 7 secured his position on the crane, while 5 waits outside of the building for the getaway plan. As 2 and 3 got inside the building, they released laughing gas in the air as they took down security guards. While on the mission, 3 then began flirting with 2. It is then revealed that he had lost one of his mask seals, so the laughing gas affected him. He was almost killed by 7 for picking an enemy gun, but he was lucky that his mask is actually bulletproof. 4 takes down the men safeguarding Murat as he proceeds to rescue him. On their way out they were faced with so many men, which wasn't supposed to happen according to the plan. Seven then tells them to grab onto something. He shoots at the pool's glass as the water floods the whole building, wiping out Rovich's men. The team managed to escape using the zip line, but 4 wasn't able to make it out on time as he was faced with Dekik, Rovich's bodyguard. 1 wanted to stick with his philosophy by leaving 4 on the mission, but in an emotional scene, 7 stopped him, saying he is never going to leave his teammate behind again. He steps out of the car, position his sniper, and then shoots Dekik, hereby saving 4. The next day, after they had completed the mission, 7 got into an argument with 1. 1 tells him that the mission is more important than the man, but 7 wasn't ready to subscribe to that philosophy, so he tells the team that his name is Blaine and he doesn't leave a soldier behind. The team then tell each other their names as they bonded. As they arrive to Kyrgyzstan, 1 then hacked the state television as Rovich was getting ready to address the public, hereby giving Murat the floor to preach democracy, which inspired the people and led to a revolution. This revolt and riot then made Rovich escape to his private yacht. The team then arrived at the private yacht. They set up their positions as 2 and 3 fights off Rovich armed men. 1 activates his magnetic invention, which took out majority of the guards. The ghost team then attacked Rovich's men with the help of 1's invention. They proceeded to find Rovich, but in the process the yacht began to sink because of an explosion that occurred. 4, who was at the upper deck, had no chance of escaping because he was surrounded by Rovich's men. They had to pursue Rovich, who was trying to escape or risk the mission by saving 4. It became a titanic situation, but 1 had a change of heart and proceeded to save 4. Rovich escaped the sinking yacht using a boat. As he transferred to an helicopter, he discovers that it was being piloted by Murat and the ghost team. Rovich begs his brother for mercy, but he tells him that it was too late as his sins had caught up with him. Rovich then asked to die with dignity, but they dropped him off in a Kyrgyzstan refugee camp, where angry citizens rushed him and then beats him to death. After the death of Rovich, Murat was made the new president. While 2 and 3 sparked a relationship, he takes 2 to go see his mother, as she embraced him tightly. 4 and 5 spent their time together climbing mountains. While 1 and 7 travels to New York City. 1 sees the woman who he had shared an emotional connection with before he started the vigilante group. He watches her from a distance as she goes over to meet her son, which could possibly be 1's son. The end. Thank you for watching till this point. You are a legend. If you love contents like this, please leave a like, subscribe and turn on the notification bell for more videos. Goodbye till we meet again.
The movie begins with a young man named Gao lying unconscious in a wrecked car at the bottom of a cliff. Jing, a native village girl, stares at the car from a distance. A few moments later, Gao wakes up and leaves the car, stumbling across a stony terrain. He barely walks a few meters away from the crash site before Jing approaches and knocks him out with a stone. The scene shifts to 8 hours before the ghastly car accident. Gao, who is a gem hunter, is joined by Xiana, his dealer, and Qin, his technician, as the trio stands on a sidewalk. There, Gao spots 2 sketchy men in a car closely watching him from down the street and immediately realizes that they're hired thugs. Gao bids Xiana and Qin goodnight before entering his car and driving off. As he anticipated, the men also start up their engine and closely tail him. Gao hits the gas and speeds off, prompting a fierce car chase which causes the accident. Back in the present, Gao wakes up and finds himself in a primitive but strange village. Here, women are the dominant gender, as they hunt and provide for their families, while the men do chores and take care of the kids. Fathers are the homekeepers and cook the meals, while the mothers serve as guards and soldiers, protecting their husbands. The village is a secluded area completely cut off from the outside world, as they have no technology or knowledge of any scientific products. Gao also learns that Xing is the queen of the tribe, and is astonished to discover this. Initially, Gao disbelieves her, and assumes that the villagers are just nerdy cosplayers with great costumes, and a perfect setup. He curses at Xing, and the rest of the women, which annoys the beautiful tribe leader. Xing is pissed at his attitude and keeps Gao in a wooden cage as punishment. Later, Gao realizes that they are indeed real people, and decides to return to the city as soon as possible. However, Yun He, the tribe's astrologer, tells Gao that he can't leave the village without Xing's permission. After a few hours, Gao begs Xing to release him from the cage and take him to his car. Xing, though skeptical, decides to have mercy on him and obliges. The two head back to the crash site as Gao searches his car for useful supplies. Gao finds a metal bat in the trunk and playfully swings it around. Mistakenly, he hits Xing on the head, causing her to pass out on the floor. Gao seizes the golden opportunity to escape and wears a backpack as he runs into the nearby woods. A few minutes later, the car's fuel tank starts leaking, and soon, Xing is surrounded by a ring of blazing flames. The villagers spot the fire and quickly rush to the scene as they pour buckets of water to extinguish the flame. Gao hears the villagers screaming from the woods and feels guilty for leaving Xing behind. He rushes to the scene and pours a bucket of water on himself before entering the fiery ring and carrying Xing out of it. Right as they leave the site, the car explodes, and the duo lands in a nearby pond, much to the villagers' relief. In the following scene, Gao is back in the village and finds his phone in his backpack. He plays a song on it, which attracts Xing's attention as she rushes into the room. Xing fears the strange device and tries to smash it, but Gao assures her that it is harmless. He offers her his earphones, and the duo listens to the music together as Xing falls asleep moments later. Gao lays a sleeping Xing in bed, after which he frantically searches the room, hoping to find a map that can lead him back to the city. In the room, Gao ecstatically finds a sapphire gemstone and decides to ask Xing about it when she wakes up. The next morning, Xing tells him that the sapphire was a gift from her dead mother. A greedy Gao offers her several items, such as a bowl of instant noodles, a novel, and even his phone, in exchange for the stone. However, Xing refuses to part with the gem, explaining that it is her most prized possession. Gao is disappointed, but resolves to steal the gem instead. Later that day, Xing asks Gao to meet her in an open field at night so they can watch the stars together. Gao accepts the offer as Xing sheepishly smiles and leaves his shed. That night, the duo lay on the grass and stare at the starry sky. Suddenly, Xing pounces on Gao and tries to remove his clothes, much to his surprise. He throws her off, and the two get into a heated argument. Gao is shocked to discover that in the village, to watch the stars means to have sex. Hence, why Xing pounced on him. Suddenly, Gao sprints to the village to escape, with Xing in hot pursuit. Xing is angry at Gao and imprisons him when they return to the village. Gao explains to Xing that he didn't know the phrase's hidden meaning and took it at face value. He also states that where he comes from, people express their feelings romantically, like confessing their love when it snows. Xing finally understands Gao, but still has him spend the night in the cell while she returns to her shed. Back in the city, Shauna and Qin earnestly search for Gao, to no avail. They check the road where his car swerved off the cliff, but are disappointed to find nothing. Qin uses a drone to search the area, but a magnetic field disrupts the aircraft and causes Qin's monitor to go blank. When the duo return home, they meet Li An, a businesswoman with whom Gao signed a contract. The contract mandates Gao to meet with Li An every 15 days, and failure to do so attracts a 60 million fine. So far, it has been 13 days since his disappearance, so Li An has come to find him. Shauna lies that Gao took a trip to the mountains and will be back soon. Li An is unconvinced, but gives the duo 48 hours to find Gao before she takes action. Back in the village, Xing takes Gao to the woods. Xing confesses her love for him and asks him to marry her, as she dumps a bucket of chicken blood on him. Apparently, Xing misheard him last night and thought he said blood instead of snow, as both words sound similar in Chinese. Gao is pissed at her and walks away in frustration, but is caught in a trap shortly after. Gao desperately begs Xing to free him from the trap. However, Xing asks him to accept her wedding proposal before she does this, and a defeated Gao ultimately agrees. On their way back, Gao finds one of the blades of Qin's drone lying in the bushes. Seeing this, he registers that his friends are looking for him and decides to escape from the village as soon as possible. That night, Gao and Xing converse and decide to get married the next day. Gao asks Xing about the village's terrain and learns that there's a secret cave in the forest. He figures that the cave is an exit from the village and plots to use it to escape. Gao also learns that the village has a wine reserve and begs Xing to take him to it. She obliges, and the duo heads to the village's central pantry. Without her knowledge, Gao drops some sleeping pills into the wine barrel as a ploy to knock out all the villagers during their wedding. Later, the couple returns to Gao's room, and Xing offers him her sapphire stone as an early wedding gift. Gao feels guilty, but collects the gem anyway. The following night, the couple has their wedding ceremony and observes the tribe's unique rites as Xing goes down on one knee and confesses her love for Gao. Gao accepts her to be his wife, after which the villagers sing and play a love song as the newlyweds dance in unison. To end the feast, Gao proposes a toast and urges the villagers to drink their respective bowls of wine. The unsuspecting natives swallow the drugged drink, but Gao tosses his away when no one is watching. A few hours later, the villagers all fall asleep, while Gao packs a bag and leaves the village. He goes through the woods and eventually reaches the cave, which connects to the outside world. Determined, Gao enters the dark cave and begins his journey to the city. The next morning, he finally reaches the end of the cave and races to the top of a mountain, smiling as he sees a nearby road. Back at Gao's house, Leanne arrives with her men as the 48-hour deadline is almost over. Leanne asks Shauna and Kin about Gao's whereabouts, but the duo reveals that they have no idea where he is. Hearing this, Leanne offers Shauna a contract that would transfer ownership of the house to her. Shauna refuses to sign the paperwork, but Leanne gives her no choice. The businesswoman signals her men to hold the duo hostage, as Shauna is forced to sign the paper with a thumbprint. Fortunately, Gao barges through the front door right in time to stop them. Kin takes advantage of the distraction and swallows the signed contract, while Gao speaks to Leanne. Ultimately, the businesswoman leaves the house and promises to keep in touch. When she leaves, Gao freshens up and shares a meal with his friends, who ask where he's been this entire time. Gao wants to protect the villagers from the outside world, so he tactfully avoids their questions and lies to his friends. After their meal, Gao shows them the sapphire gem he got from Shing. The duo marvels at the stone in disbelief, as they haven't seen a sapphire of that size in years. Finally, Gao hands the gem to Shauna, alongside a soil sample from the village for testing. Later that day, the trio visits Gao's uncle, Wen, at a nursing home and puts on a clown costume to entertain the elderly occupants. That doesn't look entertaining, that looks scary as hell. In the following scene, the villagers wake up and frantically search the area for Gao. Shing is heartbroken by his disappearance, and soon after figures that he escaped along with the gem. Overcome with sadness, she decides to go to the city to search for him. The villager's astrologer, Yun He, initially disapproves of her heading to the city. However, when Shing begs her, Yun He takes Shing to the cave's entrance and warns her to be careful of the city people before the queen departs. When Shing arrives at the city, she runs into Yi Tian, a famous astrology social media influencer who is searching for a female co-host. Shing's strange attire and quirky behavior pique his interest, and he offers to sign her to his company. Yi asks for her manager, but a confused Shing merely hands him a card that Gao left behind in the village. Yi finds a number on it and traces Gao to a nearby nursing home. At Shing's request, Yi drives her to the revealed location to look for Gao. When they arrive at the nursery, Gao spots Shing from a distance and runs before she sees him. He hides behind some bushes and observes Shing as she searches for him. Shing eventually gives up and walks towards the home's exit, but immediately turns around when she hears Gao sneeze from a nearby bush. Gao pops out with his clown costume, but Shing doesn't recognize him and merely watches as he jumps away. Sneezing bushes and clowns, the modern world must seem bananas to Shing. Moments later, Shing joins Yi in the car, and the duo drives away from the home. While conversing, Yi tells an ignorant Shing that clowns aren't real creatures, but are mere humans wearing masks. Shing is astonished by the revelation, and figures that the strange clown she saw at the home was indeed Gao. She begs Yi to return her to the nursery, and the media influencer obliges. Sadly, when they reach the nursery, Gao and his friends are long gone, and Shing is left disappointed once again. Yi volunteers to take Shing to his house, but the tribe leader refuses and sits on a pavement in front of the nursery, declaring that she'll wait for Gao to return. Yi desperately tries to get her to leave, but she refuses and even remains seated under the pouring rain. Meanwhile, Gao feels guilty for hiding from Shing and gets Kin to find her location. A few minutes later, Kin informs him that Shing, together with Yi, is still at the nursing home. Gao thanks Kin for his help and immediately drives back to the nursery. There, Gao spots Shing sitting in the rain with Yi beside her. He pulls up in front of the duo and winds down his window. Shing is shocked to see him and immediately grabs him by his shirt. Gao frantically begs her not to punch him and comes up with an absurd lie, stating that it is wrong to hit people in the rain. Shing is naive, so she believes him and enters his car as he drives her back to his house. Immediately after they arrive, Shing points her crossbow at him, but Gao manages to calm her down and puts the weapon down. Shing asks Gao to return her sapphire. However, the cunning gem hunter distracts her by offering a cake. Shing tries the sugary treat and forgets about the stone as she viciously munches on it, savoring its foreign taste. When she's done with her meal, Shing spends the rest of the day exploring the house as she adapts to the new environment. She shoots an arrow at the television set, thinking it to be a monster, but Gao explains that it's simply a gadget that can't hurt her. Shing is fascinated by the modern world and celebrates as she swings a punctured feather pillow, making a a mess of his house. The following day, Shauna visits Gao and is shocked to find the living room in a mess. Shortly after, Xing approaches her while eating a bowl of instant noodles. Shauna snatches the dish from Xing and demands to know who she is and what her relationship is with Gao. Xing is pissed off by Shauna's attitude and grabs her by the face as the dealer screams in fear. Gao is woken up by the scream and rushes downstairs to find out what happened. He finds Shauna wrapped in a blanket with a cloth over her mouth. Gao quickly frees her and is horrified to learn that Xing is responsible. Shauna is furious and asks him who the strange-looking girl was. Immediately, Gao grabs Shauna and takes her to his room upstairs. Then he comes clean and reveals what happened when he went missing. Gao explains that Xing is the queen of a secluded matriarchal village where women rule and men are submissive. Shauna initially disbelieves him, but realizes he's telling the truth when Gao shows her Xing's native crossbow. In the living room, Xing hears a knock on the window and is shocked to find Yi outside the house. She rushes to the door and tries to open it, but can't figure out how. With Yi's direction, Xing finds the door handle, but uses brute force to turn it, thus breaking it. Eventually, she gives up trying to open the door and breaks it entirely. Gao and Shauna hear the sound of the crashing door and rush downstairs to find what happened. Gao is livid to find Yi in his home and drags him out before locking his gate. However, Yi refuses to leave and reveals that he knows Xing is from a secluded island. Gao is shocked to hear this and threatens Yi to stay away from her as he heads back to the house with Xing. The following day, Gao takes Xing to a fashion store to get some new clothes. Xing tries on some outfits while Gao steps out to give her some privacy. Outside, Gao is astonished to see Li An approaching from a distance and is scared to have her discover Xing. Hence, he immediately hides behind a wall and closely watches as the stern woman enters the store. To see what happens next, watch the second part in Series Recapped.